Hello, lovely people. Today we're going to learn how to subjectively evaluate amplifiers and how to correctly do A/B testing. So subjective is the key word here because all the measurements that we did, they're objective. They don't depend on my opinion, my mood or anything, and they aren't on resistors. It doesn't depend on like speakers or whatever. So those are measurements that we do with amplifiers. They're objective. Now, subjective is it's a very tricky one just because subjective perception of sound is individual and it's highly dependent on things. For example, your mood, how you feel. Did you had an argument before, or are you happy the whole day? It depends on many things how you perceive sound. If you listen to the same system, to the same song on 2 or 3 different days, it's gonna sound to you slightly different. You're gonna hear different things just because our psychology is tied very deeply within our brain with our hearing and our perception. So how do people compare, evaluate amplifiers? What they do is they have to have like super expensive speakers and everything, but let's ignore that. The procedure of evaluating an amplifier for a typical audiophile or whoever is reviewing amplifiers, what they do is they connect the amplifier to their home system and they listen to the pieces that they know very well, and they're supposed to differentiate the sound signature from any other amplifier. Now, after they do that, if they're comparing different amplifiers, they disconnect everything, they connect the new amplifier, and they play the same music, 5, 6, 7, 10 songs, and try to see if they can hear any differences between these two amplifiers. Now, in my opinion, that is totally and absolutely incorrect. Why? First of all, our oral memory, which is the auditory memory, is extremely short. It's arguable, but some people say 5 seconds is already too long to tell the difference between two sounds or two signatures. So if it takes you 5 minutes to swap amplifiers, that time difference is way too long. So what you need is to have some kind of a switching system that can switch amplifiers instantly. And this is exactly my approach. So when I'm going to do these subjective amplifier listening tests, my plan is to eliminate the human factor as much as I can, as much as that is possible. In order to do that, I need to kind of cripple the whole test. So my test will be done by instantly switching speaker levels on relays from one amplifier to the next. I'm going to show you all the setup and everything. It's just now I'm just trying to explain how it's going to work. And the whole thing, what I'm going to try to do is I'm not going to try to describe how the amplifier sounds. Is it airy? Is it like has, I don't know, like bigger stage or depth or whatever. The main thing for me, because again, I'm not a professional, I'm not an audiophile, I didn't listen to high-end audio for 10 years. So my ears are not that great. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to listen if I can hear a difference. It doesn't matter what kind of a difference that is, but for me, and most importantly, is to hear a difference. Now, the second part of this thing, testing, is what differences are we expecting to hear and why? So the differences that I'm expecting to hear is based on the objective measurements that I did with those amplifiers. I chose specifically 2 amplifiers, and I have like 20 of them. I chose specifically those 2 because I'm going to show you why with the measurements in a minute. Because what I'm trying to do, I want to find amplifiers that are objectively very similar, but differentiate in one big way. Either that's going to be THD, so one amplifier is lower in THD than the other one. However, the rest of the parameters are kind of the same. Or in a second way is going to be THD is the same. However, the composition of THD is different. So one amplifier is going to be dominated by the third harmonic, and the other amplifier is going to be dominated by the second harmonic. In this way, I think is going to be more fair to compare amplifiers, because if you're putting totally random amplifiers that are different in all aspects, you cannot tell why. If you're going to hear the difference, you cannot tell why the difference is there. So if I will be able to tell the difference between amplifiers, I can pinpoint why that difference is there. Is it because of higher distortion? Is it because of harmonic content? Is it because of slew rate? I'm gonna try to pinpoint the exact thing why I can hear the difference. And maybe because my hearing is not audiophile grade, maybe I'm gonna try to describe it if it will be possible and if I will hear the difference. Now, some of you probably heard about Richard Clark amplifier challenge, $10,000 amplifier challenge, where one guy, Richard Clark, he basically says that you cannot tell the difference between two amplifiers if they're set up in a specific way. So that specific way is like level matched, like EQ'd, and just to make sure that both amplifiers are performing like optimally, not pushed too hard, and like normally. Because like if you have two amplifiers and one of them is playing louder, that has higher gain or whatever, you obviously gonna tell the difference. But again, it's not fair. So now, as always, before I do the actual listening test, let's go through the equipment that I'm gonna be using, and I'm gonna explain you exactly how that test is gonna be performed. So yesterday I had some time to change my setup. If you remember, I had three almost identical amplifiers. 707 was in the middle and 503s were on the sides. So now what I did, as I mentioned, I was planning to have like a shelf to put extra amplifiers, but what I decided eventually to do is just to replace those amplifiers. So the left one, 707, is for the mid bass. It's still the same, nothing is changed. And now I have two 4-channel amplifiers. These let me just quicken in. This one is a 505, and this one is MRP 240. Now this is upside down just because of the connections. There's no reason, because I have power on that side because I had it come in there, and I have RCAs here. Now what I'm planning to do is I'm planning to run one RCA split, if I can show you, split into two. So basically the two amplifiers are having the same signal coming from the DSP. That means like left tweeter gets split into one amplifier and the other one. And then the outputs from the amplifiers, I'm going to show you the relay box that I made, are going to go into the relay, and it's going to be switched either, the tweeter is going to be switched either on one amplifier, either on the other amplifier. Instantly, just like that. Now the problem with this is these amplifiers are not identical. The gains might be slightly different. The channels might be slightly different, because if you're measuring 4-channel amplifiers, all 4 channels are not gonna measure identical. So now the problem that I'm gonna have, I guarantee is gonna be like this, that if I'm gonna set up the system, EQ levels and everything for one amplifier, the other amplifier, when I'm going to switch the other amplifier, is going to be totally different. Maybe like 1.5 dB difference. I'm just guessing, but I guarantee there's going to be a difference. So before I'm going to listen, what I'm going to planning to do is to measure RTA with a stationary microphone. Why stationary? Because if I'm going to move the microphone, the movement influences the measurements slightly. But if I'm going to have the microphone stationary, for comparison reasons, it's going to be much better to compare the responses. So I have tweeters and mid-ranges. Left tweeter, right tweeter, left mid-range, right mid-range. I have 4 RCAs coming out, and I have 8 RCAs coming, so 4 out of the DSP, 8 splitting in one amplifier into the other amplifier. So I'm gonna plan to measure like left tweeter on one amplifier, then on the other amplifier, right tweeter on one amplifier, other amplifier, and we're gonna compare just the frequency response if it's the same or is slightly different. Now you can see the speaker terminals are empty. Let me show you the relay box that I made. And this is the whole brain, the relay box that's supposed to switch everything. I did show this on Facebook for some, but I'm gonna explain basically how everything works and what it does. I know it looks super messy and super janky, but it's supposed to be that way. So what I have here, I take it apart just for you to show because it's gonna be like one little box. Here you have relays. So this is a relay module from AliExpress. It has 6 relays because in the beginning I was planning to switch the whole front end. So I need 6 for 6 speakers for positive and for negative terminals. Now you can like tie the grounds into one and switch only the positives. But since I have these relays anyway, I decided to switch the positives and the negatives. So what this does, you have 3 connections into each relay. The middle one is the signal that is coming from to the actual speakers, or like, the thing is like this relay, you can use it both ways. Either you can have one amplifier and switch into 2 speakers, or you can have 2 amplifiers switch into 1 speaker. So I'm going to be using 2 amplifiers into 1 speaker. So what it does, this is the speaker terminals that are in the middle. And then what the relay does, probably is going to be shown like this easier. So this is one amplifier, this is the other amplifier. And what really it does, it connects either to one amplifier, either to the other amplifier. Now this, again, as I said, it looks janky, but it's totally fine. What I have is all of these relay connectors are bridged. So that means that with one switch, I can switch all the relays at the same time. Now this is the power that comes to the relay, and this is the output that goes like in a loop. This is like a 2-meter cable for me to sit in the driver's seat and be able to switch, enable the relay and disable the relay. So I will be able to switch while sitting in the driver position, because this has to be in the back next to the amplifiers. So let me show you. This is the power supply, 12 volts. Now we can see that the relays are on, but they're disengaged. So if I'm gonna check with a multimeter, this is a continuity mode. So it beeps whenever it detects. So now, when the relay is disengaged, I have these. All of these basically connectors going there. So it's going like this. To this, there's no signal. Nothing coming to this side. When I enable the relay with a switch, you see it goes red, and all of these connectors goes red. That means that the relay is enabled, disable, enable. All 12, but I'm using only 8. When it's enabled, then I'm having connections to this side. See? So for example, if I'm gonna leave it like this, disconnect, connect, disconnect. Yeah, and basically this is the only proper way how to instantly switch amplifiers, because as I mentioned, if it takes you 5 minutes to swap out an amplifier for your oral memory, it's not good. So this is working. Let me install it in the car and show you the rat's nest that is gonna be after that. Yeah, I told you it's gonna be a rat's nest because, again, testing. That's how it's supposed to be. One amplifier, all of these 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 going into this side. Second amplifier, 4 go into that side. I just hijacked the power just from the amplifier because why not? So the relay is green, you can see. And that wire that I have is going there. So this is gonna be for my listening position when I'm gonna be sitting in the front. Working, everything is working. Now I'm gonna have just a very quick listen just to make sure that all the speakers are working. I did check everything because, like, Even with this, you can mess up polarity. I'm 99% sure that everything is fine, but you never know. So I'm just gonna have a quick listen just to make sure everything works, and then we're gonna take some measurements. Okay, so I did the measurement, two measurements, but before I do show you the measurements, I want to show you why I chose these two specific amplifiers. So what we have here is all the measurements of all the amplifiers that I ever done, and they overlaid one on top of each other. So we have some that are not mine, most of mine, some of them are class D, but let's have a look at this, the 503. So you see the 503, this is THD plus noise. The 503 is at the very, very bottom, together with the PDX F4 at the very bottom here, then with my 409 as well at the bottom. But 409 has a lot of power. Actually, let's switch to power, to watts, just to see it a bit better. There we go. So 503 is there. And close to the top, somewhere here, we have some of the Chinese. We have the BBX, which is the worst one. And then we have this F240, which you can see is kind of in the middle, but on the top. So if I'm just going to compare F240 and 503, you can see the power difference is there, but for mid-ranges and tweeters, 30 watts is perfectly fine. But you can see the profile, basically it's close to like 10 dB difference between these two amplifiers. So this is THD plus noise. Then if we go to THD, exactly the same, more than 10 dB difference. If we have to second harmonic, same, about 10 dB difference. So basically one amplifier is cleaner than the next, apart from the third harmonic. Here the lower wattage is kind of the same, but the higher is different. So basically these two amplifiers, they have a difference of like 10 dB plus in everything. One is cleaner than the next. Now what I want to show you next is TG versus frequency. So this is the 503, the cleaner one, and this is the dirtier one. So you can see it is this is at 5 watts. You can see between, if I switch between them, the difference is in level. So one again is cleaner than the other one. But the main difference, there's no like big massive differences between these. You have slight peak on the F240 on the higher frequencies, which this one doesn't have that peak. We have the THD kind of riding, but there's not massive differences. If you would see on one amplifier, like something like going up all the way to here, and the other one is flat, that's again dependency on frequency. Same for the lower frequencies, but I'm going to be testing it on mid-ranges, so from 200 hertz. So you can see they're not identical, but they're very similar. Another thing what I want to show you is this. So this is spectre of the 5 watt measurement for both of these amplifiers. And again, you can see this one, the green one, is F240, which is the not as clean, and this 305, which is the very, very clean. And you can see the difference here as well. So the floor noise is different. And the harmonics, what's important was for me is to make sure that the harmonic content is kind of the same. So 240, second is dominant, then third, and it goes down. If I switch the amplifiers, same, second dominant, third, and down. And you can see that one is basically cleaner than the other one. If I'm going to remove this, yeah, you probably can see that there's a difference. Like for a second harmonic, one amplifier has minus 96 and the other one minus 80. So the characteristics of distortion are very similar. The main difference is the level of harmonics and THD. So one has more harmonics, more THD, and the other one has less. Now let me show you the differences between these. So I took measurements from the driver's seat in a stationary position. So I didn't move the microphone. I left it in the same position, and the only thing, I just toggled between these two amplifiers. And here you can see the difference between them. So one of them is measuring slightly different than the other one. And this is the thing that I wanted to like highlight the most, that you cannot compare two amplifiers without level matching them. Because if you have a difference of, so this is, okay, let's see, 57, 57.2, 59.1, so 2 dB difference. 2 dB difference, you're gonna hear it, definitely. It's not a question. Yes, you will hear it. So now how to deal with this is play with the gains on the amplifier. So the red one, I'm not sure which one is the red one. I need to double check because again, it's kind of half blind, so I'm not sure which one is which. But one of the amplifiers, I need to turn the gain up, because I know on both of them the gain is at minimum, so I cannot lower it. I cannot do anything in the DSP, because if you remember, the channels are going the same to both amplifiers, so I don't have individual channel controls. And this is what I said, that I might need a second DSP. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to try to level match these two amplifiers, because you can see it is slightly different. And then, because this is the whole response, don't look at this dip, because again, it's stationary, not ideal mic position, so it's not there, it's more flat. But this is what happens when you measure with a stationary microphone. Even if I'm going to apply some smoothing, where is it, smoothing? Let's do 1/3, so probably you can see better. There we go, 1/3 smoothing, and you can see there is a difference, massive difference, 55, 53, 2 dB difference, and that you will hear. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to increase the gain on one of the amplifiers to bring it a bit up by 2 dB, just to make sure they're playing at exactly the same level. And then when I'm going to have the whole response matching, I will check each individual speaker one by one to make sure that everything is the same. Because if you have mid-ranges matching and you have tweeter off by 1 dB, the image is gonna shift, because 1 dB difference for a tweeter is gonna shift the image to the side, and then you're gonna say, oh, one amplifier image is better than the next. No, because the levels are different. Okay, so enough talking. Let me adjust the gains to make sure that everything plays exactly the same, and then we can take measurements for the individual drivers one by one. Okay, level matching. I am crouched in the bag because it's raining outside. I have a multimeter connected to the one of the speaker outputs. This is tweeter. And if I'm going to play just a random tone, 4,600 hertz, I have this. So this is one amplifier, 0.13. If I switch to the next one, 0.1. So see, there's a difference in voltage. So this is how I'm going to level match. Now I'm going to up the gain on one amplifier until it's going to match 1.37. And the same for the other two channels that have the mid-ranges. There we go. I played with the gain. Now if I switch the amplifier, 1.37, 137. It basically doesn't change. 0.01 maybe, but it's kind of staying the same. So, perfect. So I did all the measurements. I have everything here. We're going to go through them. What I want to show you is just how I did the measurements. So the microphone is stuck in there. And again, for this, it absolutely doesn't matter where the microphone is or how is it positioned up. It doesn't matter, because we will be looking between the differences between one amplifier and the other one. And I was sitting on the passenger side, so even if I was influencing the measurement somehow, it was influenced exactly the same for both amplifiers. It doesn't matter. So again, we're going to look at the responses, but the responses don't matter. What matters is the differences between the responses. So yeah, I think I eliminated basically all the variables that could influence the measurements themselves. Position exactly the same. I didn't move. I literally sat down in one place. I didn't alter anything. So now let's jump into the laptop and let's see all the measurements. Yeah, there's loads of measurements. Let's start with this. So this was just to make sure that I did my level matching correct. So left and right, not left and right, sorry, one amplifier and the other amplifier after the level match, because before you saw there was 2 dB difference. Now if I'm gonna smooth it out, There's yeah, can you see the difference? There is, but there's literally, let's zoom in very in. So there is a difference, slight difference on the mid-range. Yeah, like this is absolutely fine. So this is a 2 dB scale. So we have a difference here between, for example, let's just take an example, 41.1 and 41.4, 0.3 dB difference. And again, this is only, so it looks like 0.3 dB difference in everything. But here you see the green one, which is position 0, is above. Yeah, and here positions the green one, position 0, is below. And here it's matching perfectly. So yes, there are slight differences even after level matching. There are slight differences between these amplifiers, like 0.2, 0.3 dB in some cases. But these, remember, because it's smoothed, if I'm gonna remove the smoothing, it's just literally the peaks. Yeah, no smoothing, apply, there we go. So you can see there's literally just the peaks. If we can zoom in a bit more, yeah, so for example, this slight difference, this, like here is quite a big difference at one frequency. From all of these are kind of matching perfectly apart from this. And just to clarify, it wasn't a sweep, it was pink noise. So I took 100 averages of pink noise just to make sure that I'm including all the reflections and everything. So it's not a sweep, it's not gated, pink noise. And everything below like 200 hertz here, because my mids are playing down to like 180, everything below you can see there is a difference, slight difference as well. So again, we can say that these differences are due to the measurement and not due to amplifiers, because like this difference here, you can see a little bit off at 60 hertz. It's obviously not because of amplifiers. Yeah, so this. Now let's have a look at individual stuff. So tweeter, left one position and the next. We're gonna zoom in, so it's not gonna be pretty, but because we need to see in very high detail. So no smoothing, no nothing. There we go. Left and right, left tweeter on two different amplifiers. There is a slight difference, like especially here, which is, let's have a look, 34, 36, so 1.5 dB difference in this particular frequency. But again, is it reflections, is it what, we don't know. And yeah, it's just mainly the peaks, it's mainly the peaks. Okay, so left tweeter, let's have a look at the right tweeter. Exactly the same, just the peaks. The slopes are kind of the same, it's just the difference in the peaks. Actually, which one is peakier? Let's have a look. So from this, the peak here is the brown one, this one, and the other one is more rounded. So 0 is more peaky. Let's have a look at this. More peaky is 0. Okay, so 0 is more peaky. Mid-ranges. There we go. For mid-ranges, it's almost identical. Yeah, even the peaks don't differentiate more on mid-ranges. Same. Here is slight difference, a little bit, but there's literally nothing. So that's the left one. Let's have a look at the right mid. Yeah, identical. And you see, like here, there's a green peak, and this is a red peak, so you cannot say which one is peaky more. It's kind of the same. Okay. Then I did both mids together. So this and this. Now we can zoom out a little bit. Yeah, so both mids, again, just little peaks here, but everything else is identical. It's literally 0.1, 0.2 dB difference. Okay, both mids left, both tweeters. Okay, so here we have a difference between the tweeters. And the difference is, it's not here. So lower frequencies, all good, all good, all good. It's here above 16K. See, there's a difference. So this can be attributed to the frequency response of an amplifier. If one rolls off, let's say, half a dB at 20K, and the other one rolls off 0.3 of a dB at 20K, you're gonna have this difference. And the only way to fix it would be to put it active on DSP and to EQ a little bit, maybe shell filter or something. But yeah, so the highest difference is above 14-15K. The difference is, let's have a look, 33 almost, and 31.5, so 1.5 dB difference above 16K. Are you gonna hear that? Me personally, definitely I won't. And here we have again one peak green, one peak blue, so we cannot say which one is more peakier. So the biggest difference is on the tweeters. Did we have the same on indie? Because this is the sum. Tweeter left. Kinda, maybe, yeah, one is there, but not really. So it's on the sum of the tweeters for some reason. The difference is bigger. Yeah, so on individual tweeters, there's nothing. But on the sum of the tweeters, both tweets, on the sum of the tweeters is more prominent for some reason. If anybody has an explanation, please pop it down in the comments. Okay, so we know that there's a difference there. Now let's have a look at the sides. So I have left side on one amplifier, on the next one amplifier. So left mid and left tweet only, identical. Little something little peakies, but identical. Okay, so here we can see this one is more peakier than this one, but it's kind of the same. And the right side, one amplifier and the other amplifier, identical, totally identical. And then I played the whole front without the mid bass, just the mids and tweets, all of them. And here you can see, yeah, slight difference here, but yeah, slight here. But again, can this be contributed to the measurement rather than the actual amplifier? Probably yes. And even if we're gonna say that there is a difference between these two measurements, the difference is so small. Okay, so now we have 1 dB scale. It's literally 0.2, 0.3 dB. On a sine tone, in a very controlled environment, you might potentially hear that. But on music, I guarantee it's going to be imperceptible. So I did all of this just to make sure that the differences that I'm going to hear, if I'm going to hear any differences, are going to be because of the amplifier something and not because of the levels, because the levels is the easiest thing to hear. And oh yeah, so what I did, another thing is front, so front one other amplifier, and what I did, I cranked the volume full tilt just to make sure that if I'm going to listen to music on different levels, there's not going to be any differences, because these one amplifier is like 50-60 watts and the other one is only 30, so the power difference is there. And I want to make sure that when I'm going to crank it up, one amplifier is not going to give in. So these, don't look at the SPL on the left side because it's not accurate, but the main thing is that on medium level, which is this, the bottom measurement is exactly the same, and this is very like full tilt measurement, and we can see that there's no difference. Because if you crank it up full tilt and then one amplifier measures 1 or 2 dB less than the other one, then again you can say that it was because of the levels, because one amplifier is crapping out and the other one is more robust with a better power supply or something, has more power. But this is not the case. Again, on high levels, full tilt, we have exactly the same measurements. So now I am sure, 100% sure, that my levels are perfect. Okay, so the hard part is done. This video was to show you how you should, if you're going to compare amplifiers or speakers or whatever, these are the steps that you have to do before you actually listen to anything. Because let me give you an example. When I replaced the Class D amplifier that I had, the V90 whatever, the 5 channel, and I replaced it with the Class AB amplifiers, the two channels for one for other side. I sat in the car, I put the music on, and I can instantly hear that there's a huge difference before how it used to sound before with the Class D and how it sounded now with the V12's Class AB. There's a huge difference in the top end. And like straight away, if you think about this, you're gonna say, I swapped the amplifiers, I heard a huge difference, and this is why Class AB sounds much brighter on the top end and Class D sounds much worse on the top end. No, because the levels were different. When I swapped the amplifiers, I didn't change the gain, but the gain structure on the amplifiers are slightly different. And I took the measurements, and indeed there was a difference in level of those. As well, when I had the Class D, I had my center image like where it's supposed to be, like it was. When I put those two channels, one for each side, there was image suffered quite a lot. The image was not there, and it was blurred and like not all over the place, but slightly blurred, just because those two amplifiers are two different amplifiers. It's not the same. They're not on the same circuit. They have, again, different levels between amplifiers. So what I had to do, I had to redo the time alignment. When I redid the time alignment, the center image was exactly there again. So if you just swap out amplifiers without checking levels, without making sure that each, if you're running active, that each individual driver measures exactly the same, you cannot say that the difference that you're hearing is because of the amplifier. The difference that you're hearing most likely is going to be because of the level, because level is the easiest thing for us to distinguish. If you have 1 dB level difference between two speakers, if it's between mid-range and the tweeter, the spectral balance, so you're gonna hear a bit brighter or not as bright. If there's gonna be 1 dB difference in level between left and right tweeter or mid-range, the image is gonna go sideways as well. So you have to make sure, 100% sure, that all the drivers measure identically. Now, if you do the same thing in home with the towers, where you have only 2 channels, again, you have to make sure that the level between left and right is identical, because otherwise you're going to be listening to the difference in level and not amplifier. So this video is done. I'm not going to tell you if I heard a difference or not, because this thing cannot be done in a minute or 2 minutes just sitting and listening to 3 songs. What I'm planning to do, I'm going to listen because I'm driving. I will be listening stationary, and I will be listening while driving, full tilt. I'm gonna crank it up on different levels, different songs, various different genres. I'm gonna go through all my playlists and everything, and I'm not gonna listen on Bluetooth. I have, where is it? This one. You cannot see it. SMSL. So I'm gonna go directly USB into the phone, coax out into the DSP, and I will be listening to mainly FLACs, not Spotify, no streaming. So I'm gonna make sure that I'm listening to the highest possible resolution music that should disclose something or not. And then next week probably I'm gonna share my results. Did I hear anything or did I not hear anything? So this test was gonna be between two amplifiers that have different levels of THD and harmonics. The next one I'm gonna swap and I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna I chose two amplifiers that have different composition of the THD. One has a dominant third harmonic and the other one has a dominant second harmonic, but the levels are kind of the same and kind of similar. So yeah, now it's gonna be listening, listening, and listening. I do apologize if you had expectations in this video to hear my final decision. Can you hear a difference between higher or lower THD amplifiers? And what is the limit? What is the difference? That kind of stuff. I do apologize. I'm not gonna give you my opinion right now. I need to listen. I need time, and that is gonna happen instantly switching between these two amplifiers. And I did make sure that the levels are spot on correct between them, so I know that I will be listening the difference between the actual amplifiers. Me personally, I think that I'm not going to hear anything, but hey, who knows? If you have any ideas how I can improve these tests that I'm doing, if we can eliminate some more variables, or if you think that I'm doing something incorrect, please comment and let me know, because I'm doing this as an experiment. I'm not a professional. I'm just trying things and see what happens. But yeah, I think it's gonna be fun. Interesting. Not fun, but interesting. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.